What's up, guys? Welcome back. I am here today with Sean Bugler. You guys might have seen Sean in the Microsoft Flow online conference. His session got tons of love. He's a rising Flow star. Thanks for coming and joining me today, Sean. How's it going, man?
It's going good. Living the good life down in Redwood City out here. The weather is beautiful.
What is it like over there right now?
It's a balmy. No, it says 51 degrees. That can't be right. Google's lying to me. It's got to be like
1
70.
feels like 70.
Right. It looks like 70.
Okay, right on. That's cool. That's good. That's good. I'm dealing with normal Seattle, gray, rainy, whatever. But luckily, I'm traveling to Florida soon.
Yeah, I'll see you a couple weeks after. Nice.
Yes. It'll be beautiful there. Florida's always nice. So, all right. So today, Sean is going to show us how to connect Microsoft Flow with Slack.
What?
I know. And the funny part about it is we're here on Teams recording the conversation about how to connect Flow and Slack. Now, I just want to give a disclaimer. It's not that we don't love Teams. There's no non-love for Teams happening here.
Totally. Not at all.
It's just that
it's
Flow,
about the ecosystem.
yeah, it connects to everything. And so we want to show you the broad spectrum, not just the Microsoft ecosystem all of the time. So Sean agreed on short notice to help me put a video together. So Sean, go ahead, man, take it away. Real quick, tell people about yourself, who you are, what you do, and then go ahead and jump into it, and I'll interrupt you rudely from time to time.
I welcome it.
All right.
John, as I mentioned, thanks for having me. So my name is Sean Bugler. I'm the cloud architect for the Bay Area Metropolitan Transportation Commission. We are the transportation planning authority for the 9 counties. Yes, we do a bunch of stuff. We head up the transit card. We run the bridge tolling systems. A ton of really cool stuff. It's really about just planning for the next generation of trips across.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, it's a ton of money goes through that because I mean, I know we're talking about helicopter Ubers and things like that, but people still drive, even here in the Bay Area. All those self-driving Teslas.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my job, is really just to take all the different services and platforms that we support at MTC and weave them together in a way that makes sense and allows us to leverage the best in class feature sets of every service we support.
Super cool, man. That sounds awesome.
That's fun. Keeps me busy.
Yeah. All right. So you have a presentation to share with us to get us started, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and bring us in.
All right. I'm very excited to see how people what the comments are on this video.
The controversy.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's all right, because again, Flow is an agnostic platform in the grand scheme. It's about connecting hundreds of different services together in a way that wouldn't otherwise be possible. And that's really what I love about it. And that's what's really made Flow successful within our organization.
Absolutely.
So we're going to do a really simple Slack bot with Flow.
Okay.
So we're plain and simple going to create a way to call Flow from Slack and allow it to process and parse a response and kick something back to Slack with a bot output, as opposed to it being from me or from whomever else might summon this command.
Okay, cool.
So plain and simple, we're going to go ahead and kick things off by creating our skeleton flow. From there, we're going to create our actual Slack app. And finally, we're going to install that Slack app and see what cool stuff comes from that.
All right, fun.
We're going to do it live. I know, apologies to your editor, but I think we can make it work. I think this is going to be pretty cool.
I think it's going to be great.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and kick things off by just creating, as I said, that skeleton flow. One of the things that we're going to be leveraging here is the ability to trigger a flow using an HTTP request. The problem with that, of course, is we're going to quickly find out we're going to need the schema information parsed before we can actually do anything with it. So there's going to be a little bit of ins and outs as we're setting this up, and so that's why we're calling it that skeleton flow.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and create that automated from blank. And we're going to call this ominous, the hall monitor.
The hall monitor. Oh, I remember I hated that guy in school.
I'll tell you, if I had been in school today, I probably would have been the hall monitor, but I was too I always love this. I'm going to go ahead and skip.
Yep, okay.
Now it finds it. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the when an HTTP request is received. Premium, of course. I know that people love premium.
Yep.
Go ahead and give it that hall monitor flavor here. And what we're going to go ahead and do from here, our very next step, is we're going to kick out a response. There's a lot of people that do work with HTTP requests that have a response element of it. Understand that a lot of times the time it takes to generate the response takes too long for what a service expects when it initially kicks out that request. So what we're going to do is just kick out a status 200. And that's essentially saying we've got it, we're working on it. And that's going to buy us a little bit of time with the Slack API, because otherwise this thing's going to time out super quick.
Okay.
So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm actually just going to go ahead and say, now again, one of the big challenges with an HTTP request, especially if you haven't worked with this kind of API before, is that, oh, you're going to love this. I live next to a train station.
I don't hear it.
No. How am I?
Oh, now I hear it.
There it is.
That's awesome.
We'll leave it in. So we're going to need the body JSON schema in order to get a sense of all the different elements in there, and we can actually use them in the flow later on, as you know.
Yep.
But we don't necessarily know what that format's going to be. So we're going to leave this as it is right now, and we're going to take a step back, and we're going to jump over to api.slack.com. This is where you can build your own custom apps within Slack. You can do this as a workspace owner or workspace admin. It's a really, really cool functionality of Slack, very democratic. I'm going to go ahead and jump into your apps up here in the top right. And I'm going to go ahead and create a new app.
Okay.
So in this instance, I'm just going to keep the naming scheme right on. So our home monitor. Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and choose the Slack workspace. Now it says development Slack workspace. I am a daring person, and so I do everything in production. Please don't learn from me.
We're going straight to production.
Straight to production. I'm going to go ahead and create that app. Now, the good news is this is a really, really simple Slack app that we're building here. Yeah. So while there's a lot of different features and functionality that you can throw into this, all we're really going to need is that / command. So I'm going to go ahead and click on / command here. Of course, if you already have a Slack app and you don't see this function box over here on the bottom, you can always click on / commands here on the left.
Okay.
Lots of different ways to do the same thing here.
Nice.
So a / command, for those of you that don't know, a / command is a way to summon an app or an action or a connector in Slack and bring that activity into your Slack workspace. So in this particular instance, our command is going to be /home monitor.
Do you remember what your home monitor's name was in school?
No, God, I
remember we had this redheaded guy named Kevin, and he just was such a jerk. He was the most militant hall monitor that ever was. I remember him.
It does sound like a very militant, Kevin the hall monitor.
Oh my goodness, he just took it so serious. Like, bro, you're the hall monitor. Stop! I gotta go to the bathroom. Leave me alone.
Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
We'll do this together.
Yeah.
You know what they say? Give a guy a badge. Apologies to police officers. I appreciate your work.
The hall monitors become police officers.
That's true, and we appreciate the work they do. So what I've done here is I've jumped back to that flow I created just a moment ago. Remember, this is a very unremarkable flow up to this point, but one of the important things is it's given us that HTTP post URL, and I'm going to go ahead and bring this over to where I'm creating that / command, because what it's asking for is that request URL, which is to say, when I call that /home monitor, it's going to go ahead and send out that HTTP request to whatever URL I put in here. Now, you could put google.com or microsoft.com or whatever. Yep. But what we want here is we want to actually kick this out to something that's going to give us something back. So that's where I'm going to go ahead and put that request URL. The short description, I'm going to go ahead and gently nudge my teammates into a more appropriate channel. And so this is great because, as many of you know, if you operate in Teams or Slack, this is universal across real-time collaboration and communication platforms, is that people don't always necessarily respect the spaces that they're in. So we're in the project planning channel and people are talking about what they're going to have for lunch today. And you want to say, not here.
Yeah,
we also
create noise.
I don't necessarily want to be the person who's enforcing the rules. That is that hall monitor. So it would be nice if we could defer that to technology, the way we do with everything these days. So usage hint here, I'm going to go ahead and say we're filing a noise complaint here.
That's awesome.
They're really simple. right?
Yeah.
I've got my slash command, I've got my request URL. The description and usage hints are bonuses, but I'm a big believer in the user experience, making sure that people understand what these things are meant to do, even if they're not the ones that built it. I think especially people, John, you and I know them, the people who build something that is for the organization, but really ends up being used by just them. Like we want to
Yes.
try and make these things as accessible as possible.
Totally.
So that's it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do from here. Oh, hey, John.
Oh, hey.
I'm going to go ahead and hit save at the bottom right there. And that's going to be bringing me back to my slash command. So I've got my slash command created here. And the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to jump over to my OAuth and permissions here. Don't worry, nothing crazy with OAuth. All I want to do is make sure that the add slash commands scope has been added. It does that automatically. It didn't always used to do that automatically for those of you who might have tried to do something like this before. So
Got it.
Progress. The last thing I'm going to do here is I'm just going to click this big green button up at the top, install app to workspace.
All right. It's all pretty
So you do
simple so
also,
far.
yeah, so far so good. Now, obviously,
Yeah.
we're going to go ahead and take this over into Flow, where we'll deal with a little bit more of like the JSON action that's going on. But so far so good.
Yep.
I do always like to flag this here as well. From a permission standpoint, you do need to be either a Slack workspace owner or a Slack admin in order to do what we're about to do here. And of course, depending on the organization that you're within, there may be approval mechanisms that are non-defaults that you would be subject to as well. So I'm going to go ahead and hit allow. All right, and we're off to the races here. So I'm actually going to go ahead and jump into my Slack workspace where I've got Project Coffee Bean here. And I'm just going to go ahead and type that slash key and check it out. There's that hall monitor. So I just created it. It's already live in the production workspace. But that said, if I press enter, nothing happens. Why?
Okay.
Because right now we're kicking the information out to Flow, but Flow doesn't have any instructions on what to do with it. It doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and jump back to Flow. Take a step back here. Take a look. There it is. There it just ran a moment ago, and it was successful. It better have been. Hey again. I'm gonna go ahead, click on that right there, and you can see, sure enough, super successful. So this is where we're going to
Awesome.
start to take that output content and build out our schemas so that we can actually use the information that's inside these outputs.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and copy all that action there. And I'm going to go ahead and edit. All right, I'm going to use that sample payload to generate schema, my favorite feature. Boom. Beautiful.
Yep.
So what I'm going to go ahead and do from here is I'm actually going to go ahead and drop down a little bit here. Because now that we've got this information and we've been able to stage a schema, we'd like to be able to parse that information so we can take even more information from that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go ahead and search for my parse. Yeah, the good stuff here. And I'm going to parse my form data. Now, of course, once again, I run into this challenge of I don't necessarily know what that schema is going to be.
Yep.
So I'm going to cheat a little bit here because unlike the when an HTTP request is received, this schema is required. So we're actually going to just throw a couple of squiggly brackets here. Now, for those of you who have ever worked with the when an HTTP request is received flow trigger, you probably know that when I click test and use data from a previous run, it doesn't actually work because it is waiting for that information in real time. So this test isn't actually going to work in this instance.
Yep.
So we're going to do it live. And I'm going to run it again. Here comes another train here.
I like it. It's a good background effect. You're pretty close to the railroad, huh?
I am right next to it.
Nice.
It seems fitting that I work for a transportation planning agency that I would live next to the train
Just
station.
keeping an eye on things.
That's right. Making sure that it's all floating along. So I'm going to go ahead and take a step back here. And once again, I've ran that test. And again, I'm doing I can get the outputs so that I can then start to parse them.
Got it.
So I'm going to copy all that action here. We can see there's some exciting stuff like the token, the team ID, the domain, and so on and so forth. And that's some good, useful information. I'm going to go ahead and use the sample payload to generate schema again. Boom. Beautiful. Starting to get this information. We've got all the schema outputs staged. We've got everything parsed. So what we want to start to do is extract some of that useful information. And in this particular instance, we only really need one bit of information, which is the response URL. The response URL is what's going to tell us what channel did this call come from. Because if we called, hypothetically, the hall monitor here in Project Coffee Bean, it'd be kind of bad if that output jumped into the development channel or general or random, where they're having actual, real, meaningful conversations. And they're like, what? This is all fine.
Right.
So we do want to be really surgical with this because, again, part of the user experience is making sure that we've got good, consistent, clean responses. All right, so now that we've got all that information parsed, what we want to do is filter for that response URL. Right,
Okay.
so I'm going to go ahead and click on New Step there, and I'm going to go ahead and type filter. And filter for that sweet, sweet array. Now, as it goes right there, we've already parsed that information, so we're going to go ahead and kick in the body.
Okay.
Here in value, we're looking for a specific key. And that particular key that we're gunning for is, as I mentioned, that response URL. So we're saying out of all that information that's coming in from the HTTP request that's being parsed, we want the response URL bit of it.
Okay.
Once we've extracted that, I'm going to go ahead and click on New Step and initialize everybody's favorite unconnected connector, the initialize variable.
Yes.
I'm going to be super creative with it and give it that response URL. And we're going to drop it in as a string.
Okay.
Now, as we're parsing that information and filtering for that very specific array, the response URL array, even though there's only one value in this array, we still need to be able to extract the value of that so that we can use the text output in other areas, like in this particular instance when we kick back the response, so that it knows where's this response going.
Okay.
So I'm going to click into the value space here, and I'm going to go into expression. I'm going to use the coolest expression of them all, the first expression here. Yeah, because all we're saying here is, yeah, despite the fact that there is only one, let's go ahead and extract the first one. Let's really distill this down into that core output.
Yep. So, well, because then you don't have to deal with the array. You're taking it out of the array.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Now, if I were doing this live and in production and I was going to do this as something that I was going to, no kidding, use over a period of time, I'd start renaming these actions so that I would understand that filter array is where I'm getting my response URL extract from. But in this instance, considering that we just did that, I was there, you were there, good times. I'm going to go ahead and extract that filter array, right?
Yep.
Now, the trouble with this here is that it's going to pull the full array, and I don't actually want the full array. Instead, what I want is just the value. And so this is a really clever trick that a mutual friend of ours, John Liu.
Shout out to the Flow Ninja.
Yeah, gotta love it. This is going to help me extract just the value piece of this, which is super important because that's all I actually want from this.
Yep.
And I'm going to go ahead and click OK.
Cool.
Boom. So now that we've done this, we've actually done most of the hard part. There's one more key piece that we're going to do here in just a brief moment here, but just to kind of summarize what we've done, we've received the response. We've parsed the information, we filtered for the response URL, and we went one step further and we extracted the value from that response URL array.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and do one last thing here before we actually compose our HTTP output here. Is I'm going to go ahead and gun for that compose, the powerful stuff here.
A variable and a compose.
I know, we're covering all the bases here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this or not, but your team pays me $10 every time I use an unconnected connector.
Wow. Okay.
You didn't get that deal?
I did not. I'm kind of like, I got bummed out here. I got a lot of videos.
Yeah, you got to go talk to some people here.
Man, all right.
So I'm actually going to take a step back here and just highlight that it's super important to read documentation, wherever that happens to be. And in this particular instance, if you're building a slash command, Slack has some really great documentation with respect to what it's looking for and what kind of information it needs and what format it needs. I am not a coder by any stretch. So as I scroll down here, it's giving me the rough structure of a JSON payload that it's expecting as we're kicking it out. And it's telling me a couple of key things that I'm going to leverage in just a brief moment. In particular, it wants me to flag the content type as application/JSON, and it's giving me the JSON format that it wants to use.
Nice.
So I'm going to do something similar to this here. I'm going to cheat a little bit because I've already got it saved. Boom. So what I've got here is response type in channel. So basically, wherever this output came from, we're going to kick it back to that channel.
Okay.
As far as text is concerned, this is what the actual text output is going to be. And parse info. So if I put any at commands or hashtags or anything like that, or links, it's going to parse that in real time, which is pretty neat.
Nice.
So I'm going to go ahead and give this a useful output here, like, hey, folks, maybe this isn't the best place for this conversation. Beautiful. Now, of course, depending on the culture of your organization, you can kind of turn it up a little bit if you'd like, or if this is too aggressive, we can turn it down a little bit. So we've got our JSON compose response here, and I'm going to go ahead and create my last step here, which is just an HTTP. There we go. Post.
Nice.
Now, where is that URI going to go? Great question. The response URL.
There you go.
Now, as I mentioned just a moment ago, it's really important that we flag the content type here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to jump back here, and it's telling me that it's expecting content type and application JSON. I've got a clipboard manager here, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. Beautiful. And as far as the body goes, well, we just generated that. That's our compose.
Nice.
And I'm going to go ahead and hit save.
Fun.
All right. So now all that's left to do is check to see if this actually worked, or if I just led you on a wild goose chase here.
I bet it works. I bet it works.
I appreciate your faith.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go
yeah.
ahead and hit that slash icon here. There's my hall monitor. And I'm going to go ahead and press enter. Boom. Check it out.
Boom.
So what it's done here is it's actually gone and kicked out, again, that HTTP request out to Flow. Flow received that information, parsed the response URL. We composed the output. We kicked everything back to Slack, and we did that all in about 2 seconds. So that's pretty cool.
It was only like 2 seconds.
Which is awesome because, again,
Yeah.
speed is of the essence when you're trying to expose the user to this kind of experience. If it's 10 seconds, the user is going to go, well, now 4 messages have posted, and that's wildly unrelated now.
Right.
So we need to get quick uptake on that. So that's
I
really
like it.
now the last thing that I'm going to go ahead and highlight here is more just a design touch here because, this looks a little hacky right here. You got a
No, you know what? I was gonna actually comment on that and say I actually like your little notebook touch. Like I do. It's like it adds like a little bit to it, to have the icon there and give it a little bit of personality.
Absolutely. And so this is the default one here. So as you start to build more and more, you're going to want to go ahead and take the initiative and build your own. I personally use a service called Canva. I'm a really big fan. It's free.
Okay.
I love Canva. I'm not a graphic designer by any stretch, but I know what I like.
Yeah.
So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to jump back to that app that we built earlier at api.slack.com, and I'm going to go to basic information. And here's my app icon and preview here. Yeah. Just got one ready.
I love it.
Oh, did I make it too big? Damn.
Oh, okay. Well, so I like the little icon. I saw it. Look at it. That's amazing.
We're letting the people see what they're missing out on here.
That's awesome.
But to close it out, yeah, a really powerful tool. The last thing I'd like to show you, John, is something we didn't build in real time that is an extension of what this can be. Because right now, all this does is when I type that slash hall monitor, it kicks out a response no matter what channel we're in. So if I'm in development, for example, and I type hall monitor, it's going to kick that output response there. But the problem is that it's not the most helpful. So it'd be nice if I could actually run that same command, but perhaps provide a helpful suggestion of where they could take this conversation. So maybe we're in Project Coffee Bean, and the conversation is devolving into something a little bit more developy.
Okay.
So in this particular instance, I've already created the super hall monitor.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can see I've already got this one pre-built with that icon.
Oh yeah, look at that. He's definitely more serious.
Much more business.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you can see here again, I've provided that context of an optional alternative channel.
Okay.
And I'm going to go ahead and say this should probably be in the development channel.
Nice.
Boom. So pretty
Very
cool.
cool.
You can see it's parsing all that information. If I jump into my flows here, I'll go ahead and show you the super hall monitor. So you can see it's not that much more complex. All it's doing is it's parsing for a little bit of extra information, and it's using a condition to parse whether we did suggest an alternative or not.
Do they call the police? I love it. I love it. That's excellent.
So yeah, so that's what I got for you today, John. What do you think?
Awesome. That's great, man. This is super cool. I think this is very, very cool, and it shows you the possibilities here of what can be done too. Because even if it's not a hall monitor, that's your thing, you could turn this around and use it for, imagine if I could call in an instant a helper bot to do things for me, right?
Absolutely.
And say, hey, I need to create a ticket or something along those lines. You could use the same methodology along a million different business uses if Slack is your collaboration space.
Absolutely, and I'll build on you one further to appease the Microsoft gods. We could be connecting this kickback to an Azure chatbot service, and we could be parsing that text response like I did here with this example of suggesting a channel, parse the question, generate a response, drop it in the Slack channel, and we've got, in the grand scheme, a very, very cheap Slack chatbot that we can customize
totally.
as much as we want.
Yeah. Q&A maker, man. I've done a couple of videos on that. That's fun. Awesome. All right. Well, hey, guys, Sean, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, I'm going to put some links for Sean down in the description. Be sure to go follow him. He is starting to speak all over the place.
Yeah.
He was just at SharePoint Saturday, New England. You have a couple Power Platform World Tours coming up, right?
I hope so. We're going to find out.
Awesome. So go ahead and follow him on Twitter so that you can stay up to date with all the things he's doing. Thanks for joining me, man. I appreciate you taking the time to show us all how to put this together.
Thanks, John. I appreciate it.
All right. You guys know what to do. Click like, click subscribe. Much love from me. I'll see you in the next video.